the song that tore Fleetwood Mac apart but made them legends.
You can go your own way.
What if I told you one of the most famous rock songs ever was written like a weapon, a melody sharpened by pain, pride, and revenge that would blow up into one of the biggest hits in history? Behind its perfect groove and those angelic Fleetwood Mac harmonies lies a story of shattered love, quiet betrayals, and a band that, to survive, had to turn its hurt into its greatest spark. How did something so crushing end up so unstoppable? That's the story we're diving into today. Stick around till the end. Our tale kicks off in California, late 60s. Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks were just two kids with huge dreams and a fire that wouldn't quit. They met in high school when Lindsey was shredding guitar in a band called Fritz. Stevie jumped in as the singer soon after, and right from the jump, something clicked. There was a spark between them, not just musically, but on a whole deeper level. Fritz even opened for legends like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, but when the group split, Lindsey and Stevie decided to go their own route. That's how Buckingham Nicks was born, a duo blending folk, rock, and the ache of two souls still figuring out life. In 1973, they cut their first album together, a record full of tender, real songs and a cover showing both of them naked like they were screaming their truth to the world. On it, you'd find tracks like Frozen Love, the standout piece of that partnership, a long, heartfelt tune where Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham weave intimate harmonies into a warm, wide-open sound. But the crowd didn't bite like they hoped. Sadly, the album tanked hard, barely sold a thing. Stevie, heartbroken and broke, waitressed at a Mexican joint just to cover rent. Lindsey, meanwhile, kept the music dream alive, writing in his tiny apartment on a borrowed guitar. And yeah, everything looked hopeless. But in those uncertain nights, songs were born that would later become legends, though that's still a ways off. For now, we've got two drifting artists with a bond so deep that even if the world wasn't listening yet, they were destined to leave a mark. Before we roll on, we want to know you a little better. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Let's keep going. Fate took a sharp turn one random afternoon in 1974. In LA, drummer Mick Fleetwood was hunting desperately for a new guitarist for his band. Fleetwood Mac had just gone through another lineup shakeup, pretty normal for them, and Mick needed someone with a fresh sound, something to breathe life back into the group. A buddy told him to spin the Buckingham Nicks record. Mick threw it on in the studio, and when the needle hit the vinyl, he froze. Lindsey's guitar rang clean, clever, different, exactly what he was after. Without overthinking it, he called Buckingham to offer the gig. But Lindsey laid down one condition. If I'm in, Stevie's in with me. Mick said yes, never guessing that call would rewrite rock history forever. So early 1975, Fleetwood Mac morphed. Original members Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, and Christine McVie welcomed two new faces, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. It was a fresh chapter for the band, a weird mix of British grit and California vibe. And sure, everybody was smiling for the cameras, but truth is, they were walking straight into an emotional minefield. Hit that like if you're digging the story, let's roll. The new Fleetwood Mac lineup didn't just have talent, it had tension thick enough to choke on. When they hit the studio to cut their next record, what should have been the start of a golden era turned almost without anyone noticing into a powder keg. Didn't have to dig deep to find open wounds. Every single member carried one. Start with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. Their relationship, the one that kicked off like a teenage fairy tale full of inside jokes, was completely shattered. Wasn't some quick fight, it was a gut-wrenching breakup laced with jealousy, silence, blame, and that unbearable feeling of losing the person you thought you'd build a life with. Picture the scene. Two musicians who used to write songs staring into each other's eyes, now thrown together in the biggest project of their lives. Forced to share the same room day after day while memories stabbed like they happened yesterday. Stevie wanted freedom, Lindsay wanted steady ground, but neither was possible anymore. Still, they weren't the only ones. John and Christine McVie, the band's steadiest couple, were also falling apart. After years of marriage, Christine wasn't feeling it anymore, and John, leaning hard into the bottle, was drifting further away. They were basically strangers under the same roof. And right in that emotional void, Christine started a fling with the tour's lighting director. Things got so awkward the studio engineers built separate recording zones just to keep John from seeing Christine chatting with other guys. Sometimes they couldn't even be in the same room without the air turning to ice. And if that wasn't messy enough, Mick Fleetwood was living his own nightmare. He was slogging through a brutal divorce, loneliness aided him, and coke flowing through studios back then like tap water quickly became his emotional crutch. What hardly anyone knows is that in the middle of all that darkness, Mick and Stevie Nicks started a secret fling, a secret they both tried to bury to avoid pouring more gas on the fire already raging. But come on, in a band where everybody was broken, nothing stayed hidden long. Everybody was wrestling their own demons, and that's the state Fleetwood Mac was in when they started writing an album that, ironically, was supposed to be about something none of them felt right then: truth. The truth that even in total chaos, music can be the only way to keep moving. Despite it all, or maybe because of all the tension and mess, the music started pouring out. The studio turned into a confessional booth. Every song was a diary page they were all scribbling at once. No filters, no masks, no fear of showing their rawest side. The album they were crafting would be called Rumors, and every track hit a real-life story. No fiction, no overblown metaphors, just life turned into melodies. And smack in the middle of that creative hurricane, Lindsey Buckingham showed up with a song that changed everything: Go Your Own Way.
You can go your own way.
He wrote it like a letter he knew the other person would read every line, a direct shot at Stevie. A tough message, but not cruel, straight up saying, go your own way. But the song's power wasn't just the words, because Lindsey built it like he was hammering out his frustration.
You can call it another lonely day.
The guitars sliced sharp and furious, and the drums Mick Fleetwood behind the kit pounded a rhythm like a heart racing with rage. Then John McVie's bass held it all down from below. Rock solid, a thump you felt in your chest. Lindsey later admitted he pulled from Rolling Stone-style grooves. He wanted the track to feel like a runaway train, like someone sprinting downhill with no brakes. To nail that vibe, he layered guitar after guitar, each one cranked a little different. When they mixed it, the sound went three-dimensional, like the emotion jumped out the speakers and punched you right in the sternum. Christine McVie added soft harmonies that felt like a cool breeze in the storm, while Stevie had to step to the mic and sing the words Lindsey wrote about her. Stop and think about that for a second. The person you shared your life with is staring at you through the studio glass while you sing a song about how you're drifting away, how that person doesn't believe in you anymore. Straight out of a movie script. During sessions, Stevie called the song unfair, said it painted her as selfish, but she still sang it. And her voice, strong, cracked, dripping pride, became one of the album's most iconic performances. What's your favorite Fleetwood Mac song? Drop it in the comments. Every take they laid down, you could cut the tension with a knife, arguments, cold stares. But there were also moments of pure magic where all that hurt turned into perfect notes. Because that was Rumors, a living contradiction, a masterpiece built while everybody crumbled inside. An album where music doubled as therapy, revenge, release, and somehow reconciliation. The day Go Your Own Way hit the airwaves, nothing was the same for Fleetwood Mac. It was the official first taste of their new record. Early reactions were wild. Radio stations flipped. This sound was bright, electric, a perfect blend of ache and freedom. Critics called it an emotional declaration in rock form. In stores, folks wouldn't stop asking for it. And at shows, even before crowds knew the words, they were nodding to Mick Fleetwood's drums and Lindsey Buckingham's wild strums. But the impact went way past the music. Fans knew the band was knee-deep in drama, and hearing Stevie belt Lindsey's song live in front of thousands turned into an unforgettable moment. There was something almost cleansing about watching them share a stage despite everything. When Rumors finally dropped, the music world flipped upside down. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural earthquake. Days after release, pre-orders were so insane they smashed records at stores across the states. Sales climbed so fast the label couldn't keep up. Then the impossible happened. Rumors cracked the top 10 for the first time ever in the band's career, rocketing them into living legend status. But that was just the start. Over time, the album cleared 40 million copies worldwide, a number so massive for the era it's hard to wrap your head around. It's the result of countless homes connecting on a gut level with stories born from the deepest pain. Rumors became a dead-on mirror of the 70s spirit. A decade of skyrocketing divorces, new personal freedoms, couples no longer scared to admit love could morph into something else. People heard their own mess in those songs, a way to say, yeah, I'm going through this too. And right in the middle of that shared ride, Go Your Own Way locked in as an anthem. An anthem for cutting someone loose, for letting go, for accepting sometimes you can't walk beside the person you love. Radio stations spun it non-stop, single sales exploded, and fans claimed it as one of those tracks that shows up exactly when you need it. So the reception wasn't just commercial, it was soul deep, a bridge between the band and everybody listening. Proof that even broken, their music could heal. Subscribe if you want us to tell the story of your favorite song. As years rolled by, the tale of Go Your Own Way grew even bigger. It wasn't just a song forged in hurt anymore, it became proof that conflict can birth art. That might be Fleetwood Mac's greatest gift, turning raw feelings into timeless melodies. The lyrics talk breakups, but the music screams resilience, screams keep going even when your heart's in pieces, and that's echoed across generations. Bands and artists from every corner have name-dropped Fleetwood Mac as a major influence. From today's pop stars to alt-rock crews and quiet folk projects, they've all found in Rumors a masterclass in vulnerability and real-deal honesty. Go Your Own Way has been covered by dozens of artists, each version a fresh spin on the same ache. What makes the song so mighty is that even though it came from one super personal moment, it hooks into a universal truth. We all, at some point, have to let go. And that ties straight into the social vibe of the 70s, a decade of massive cultural shifts. Divorce rates shot up. Relationships stopped being boxed in by old rules. Folks started putting their own well-being first, even if it meant walking away. In that landscape, Rumors became a symbol, a spot-on portrait of a society learning to love differently. The song, like everything Fleetwood Mac did, reminds us creativity can crawl out of the darkest holes. That art can be catharsis, that even in the worst stretches, we can find a voice to walk with us. That's the band's magic. That's why, decades later, their music is still essential. When it's all said and done, this story leaves us with a heavy truth. Anguish can turn into beauty. Wounds can become songs that travel farther than we ever dreamed. Fleetwood Mac taught us music doesn't always come from harmony. Sometimes it comes from chaos. Go Your Own Way isn't just a breakup track, it's a track about finding your own path, even when it hurts like hell. And for us music lovers, that felt like a hug. And that's the end of this ride. We'll drop another killer music story right here if you want to keep chasing that old school nostalgia. Catch you next time.